Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. According to recent reports, approximately 58% of the American population could potentially qualify for the new $2,000 stimulus check, which some are referring to as a dividend payment. This is the latest in a series of financial relief proposals from the administration, designed to help households struggling with inflation and rising costs. The article I'm referring to, which I will share in a moment for you to review, brings forward some crucial points regarding who will be eligible for this payment, shedding light on key statements from prominent figures within the government, including Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. These comments, along with the income thresholds outlined, offer important context on how the program is being shaped and who will benefit. It's all connected to how much people are earning, and that alone seems to be the primary determinant for eligibility. Now, this isn't the first time we've heard of such a proposal. We've been hearing whispers about this $2,000 payment, whether it's being called a stimulus, a dividend, a rebate, or a distribution. Regardless of the terminology, the real question is when will it arrive? And more importantly, who exactly will be included? While the specific timing remains unclear, one thing that has remained consistent is that eligibility largely hinges on income. It doesn't matter whether you are working, receiving a fixed income benefit, or filing taxes. The only factor they seem to be considering is income in relation to a set threshold. That's the only determining factor here. I've been emphasizing this for months now, and it looks like the government's stance hasn't changed. It's all about how much money you make. As for the $2,000 dividend payment, there are some interesting discussions about the income limits that might be imposed. From the article, we see that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has commented on this, suggesting that those with incomes under $100,000 are likely to qualify. That's a key detail that many people have been curious about. How much money is too much to receive the stimulus? According to Scott Bessent's remarks and the information circulating from the Census Bureau, a significant portion of the population, around 42%, made over $100,000 in 2025. This is much higher than I expected, honestly. It shows that a lot of Americans are earning at levels that may disqualify them from receiving this payment. But this threshold is based on household income data from the Census Bureau, not tax return data. It's important to note, though, that there's a crucial distinction between household income and tax filing data. This program, as it currently stands, doesn't look at your household income as a whole. It looks at whether or not you file a tax return and how much income is reported on that return. Whether you file a joint return or an individual return, it all boils down to the numbers that appear on that form. This is a crucial distinction that many people might not fully understand. For example, even if your household makes under the $100,000 threshold, if one individual in the household has a high-paying job and files taxes individually, that could impact eligibility. I know this is a lot of info to digest, but stick with me because it's all tied into a much larger picture. We all know that income thresholds like these can exclude a significant number of people who are, in reality, still struggling financially. And of course, there's always confusion around whether people who are not currently filing taxes, whether due to retirement, disability, or other circumstances, will be included. Well, according to the most recent discussions, if you aren't filing taxes, that could make you ineligible for the stimulus, unless some other provisions are added in the future. Now, I know that a lot of you who watch these videos here on the channel are enrolled in Medicare. If you're one of the nearly 70 million people receiving Medicare benefits, I wanted to quickly mention that if you have any questions or need assistance with your Medicare coverage, I highly recommend you reach out to Chapter. Their services are 100% free, and many people within our community have used Chapter to save a significant amount of money. In fact, thousands of people in 2025 alone reached out to them and collectively saved over $2 million. It's a pretty incredible number, and I've been receiving so many positive comments from you all about your experiences with Chapter. I've literally got pages and pages of feedback from people saying they saved big money after calling Chapter for help with Medicare. If you're on Medicare and want to make sure you're getting the best coverage at the lowest cost, give Chapter a call. They'll help guide you through all the options available and make sure you're not overpaying. If you decide to reach out, I'd love for you to drop a comment below with the word Chapter in it so I can add your story to the growing list of success stories. I'll feature your feedback in an upcoming video as a way to help others in the community who might be unsure whether it's worth calling. It's really all about spreading the word to make sure as many people as possible are taking advantage of these savings opportunities. But coming back to the $2,000 stimulus or dividend payment, the article I mentioned earlier provides an interesting breakdown of who will be included based on the income thresholds and other factors that have been discussed by government officials. Now, you might be thinking, wait, you said 58%, but the article mentions only 42% will be excluded. Here's why. The article states that 42% of the population would not qualify due to earning over $100,000, but I'm focusing on the 58% who could potentially be eligible. That's a higher percentage than many people might have expected. So, while it's easy to get caught up in the numbers, the bottom line is that there's a significant portion of Americans who could stand to benefit from this payment, even if it's not universal. To give you some perspective, back in early November 2025, the president mentioned the idea of this $2,000 dividend payment, which would exclude higher income earners. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's comments around that time suggested that people making under $100,000 would likely be eligible, which aligns with what we're hearing now. While we don't know the exact details, it's clear that the government is aiming to target middle and lower income households with this financial relief. For many people, this could be a lifeline as they continue to navigate the challenges of 2026. So, with all that in mind, the big questions are still when exactly will these payments start, and how will they be distributed? These details are still up in the air, but based on the income criteria being set, it seems likely that the government will move forward with something this year, but exact timelines are still to be confirmed. For now, the focus seems to be on ensuring that as many people as possible, those with incomes under $100,000, are able to receive the payment when it arrives. As we continue to discuss the $2,000 dividend or stimulus payment, it's becoming increasingly clear that the focus is shifting toward income-based eligibility. This shift is significant because it seems to reflect a recognition that a large portion of the American population is still facing financial strain, despite the economic recovery. The proposed $2,000 payment aims to help those most affected by inflation, rising living costs, and the changing economic landscape. This kind of direct cash relief is seen as a necessary step to support families, particularly those whose incomes haven't fully bounced back to pre-pandemic levels. It's not just about the people in the workforce either. The focus is on households across the country, whether they're supported by fixed income sources like Social Security or relying on part-time or gig economy jobs. The idea that a simple income threshold will determine eligibility makes it feel more inclusive, though as we've seen in similar programs before, there will still be significant gaps in who gets help and who doesn't. It's also important to recognize that the push for these payments is not just about offering a temporary financial cushion. It's about addressing systemic issues related to wage stagnation and the rising costs of everyday goods. Even as the economy grows, many households still find themselves unable to keep up with the rising cost of healthcare, education, housing, and food. This payment, if approved, would provide a form of relief that directly targets these economic pressures. However, while the payment is substantial, $2,000 may not be enough to solve the deep-rooted financial struggles that many families face. The true effectiveness of such a stimulus will depend on how it's distributed, whether it reaches the people who need it most, and if it's part of a larger plan to address economic inequality in the long term. Many individuals, particularly those in rural or underserved areas, have faced barriers to accessing such financial relief in past distributions, and it will be crucial to ensure that these issues are addressed in this round as well. Another factor that complicates the conversation around eligibility for the $2,000 payment is the way it interacts with the broader tax system. As I mentioned earlier, the distribution of this money will be based on tax returns rather than household income in a broader sense. This could leave out individuals who might not file taxes because they're not required to, such as retirees with modest pensions or people on disability. The government may find that there is a gap in its outreach to this group, which could undermine the goals of the program. Moreover, if the payment relies solely on tax data, it risks excluding people who are facing financial hardship but don't meet the strict criteria for filing a tax return. This could result in some of the most vulnerable Americans, those who may not have the resources to file or understand the tax system, being left out entirely. While it makes sense to base eligibility on some form of documentation like tax returns, it's crucial that the system accounts for people who may not be fully engaged with the tax system but still need this relief. What we also need to keep in mind is that this $2,000 payment isn't necessarily a one-time deal. If this program is successful, there's a possibility that it could set the stage for future relief payments or even become a permanent part of the social safety net. The way the government frames this program and evaluates its success could have long-term implications for similar initiatives in the future. If the distribution goes smoothly and has a noticeable impact on household stability, there may be pressure to extend or even increase such payments, especially if economic challenges persist or worsen. On the other hand, if the distribution process is bungled, or if the payments don't result in a significant boost for those in need, it could lead to questions about the efficacy of such programs. It's possible that a future administration might take a different approach or abandon this type of direct payment program altogether, but it's equally possible that this will pave the way for more frequent or targeted relief efforts. In any case, the long-term success of the $2,000 payment will depend on how well it addresses the specific needs of the American people and whether it can provide measurable relief to those struggling to make ends meet. Ultimately, the question everyone is asking is, when will the $2,000 payments actually arrive? This is the point that everyone seems to be fixated on, and understandably so. The timing of these payments is critical, especially given the precarious state of many household budgets. People need to know when they can expect to see this money, as it could make a significant difference in their ability to meet basic needs, pay down debt, or invest in important long-term goals. Unfortunately, the timeline is still unclear, and the government is taking its time to iron out the specifics. However, as we move further into 2026, there is mounting pressure to get the money into people's hands as soon as possible. With midterm elections approaching, politicians are likely to prioritize this issue to gain favor with voters who are in need of financial relief. If the distribution of these payments is delayed too long, it could have political consequences, as people may feel disillusioned with the promises that were made. For many, the success of this program will depend not just on the amount of money they receive, but on the timeliness of the assistance in addressing immediate financial concerns.